Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was betrayed and tortured for 6 years and takes revenge part 1. Before we start, please go support PeladosapitoMedina for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 1. The brown boy was seen in a dark place while his arm and foot were completely chained, while his entire body was full of blood, burns, cuts and some open wounds, while there was a drop of blood coming out, and an emotionless look was just a cold look without feeling, as if he were already more than dead in a living body. That's right, this was the hero of the factions, or rather the former hero of the factions. Since when the war ended between the Cows Brigade and the Bestial Apocalypse, the world was at peace. Ice wanted to spend time with his partner, but when he entered his room, he saw that with everyone his wife was having sex with his older brother, Rito, but when they and he realized it, my surprise was great. "What are you doing here, loser, don't you see that we're busy?" Ria said as she began to ride. "Go away, idiot, leave us alone," she said while pleasuring herself with Irina, and suddenly the leaders appeared and the girls only put on some clothes so they wouldn't see her naked, and from there comes the leaders of each faction and the team of value. "Ice, as you see, no one needs you now, if they can, I died in peace," Serziches said with a look next to Michael, Azazel, Auden, Zeus, Shava, Great Red and Vali. They only looked with disgust. "I'm not going to get killed easily," I said seriously, but to his surprise even Drake speaks. "Stop being an idiot, stupid boy, I will no longer be my bear, I will ruin my name as the Great Red Dragon Emperor of Domination, but now everyone knows me as the Breast Dragon," Drake said furiously, and Ice just lowered his gaze. "Now get me out of this body," Drake said, and Azazel just approached in front of Ice and took out a device and put it where the sacred gear is, and if anything else Azazel pressed a button and from there lightning began to come out while I screamed in pain. Well, I begged it to stop, but no one did anything. Everyone waited 3 hours until the green order came out of there and was placed in the ritual body. "Now my love is now the secretary," said with a smile to give her lover a kiss, and he reciprocated it while Ice was alone on the floor bleeding. "Don't worry, we still have plans for you," Sona said with an evil smile. I only thought of the worst. To this end he was taken to a torture dungeon in the worst possible way, including a ritual together with the bitch that was Ria's, Sona, Tsubaki, Momo, Akeno, Kaneko, Asia, the bitches Yusaka and Kanu, Ravel, Penemu, Serafal, Gabriel, Zenobia, Irina, Kuroka, Lefei, Ingvald, Rasuise, Office, Tiamat, Elmenhold, Griselda, Marana had Hex in front of me while he looked at me. Even that damn thing that called himself father hit me, and the bitch that called himself my mother raped me. 50. Together with the other leaders who came to see how I screamed in pain, even the one who calls himself the leader of heaven, Michael, tortured me, even though he asked me how that damn guy didn't fall. 6 years ago they had me 6 damn years in my life, but just a week ago they told me that he was going to kill me. For some to think that I was going to die was a fear for everyone, but for me it was the day of my release. But I see like someone walked into that damn door, and I see that damn red-haired girl, it was that damn bitch from Ria's, and she just comes closer. "What happened, bitch? I still haven't unclogged your pipes together with the other bitches," I said with a smile, and Riaz listened to that, he got angry to throw a power of destruction in his right arm, and Ice just endured the pain. "Shut up, you filthy scum," said Riaz with an arrogant tone, and that annoyed Ice if they weren't chained, and he would personally make Riaz suffer in the worst way that he suffered there. "I may be scum, but I'm not a bitch that opens my leg to anyone who crosses her, damn bitch," I said to spit in her face, and she listens to that and more. The sculpture made Riaz very angry, and she just started. He tortured Ice, and he only grunted in pain, but did not yell at him, since he was not going to give pleasure to that bitch. "That was fun for me, but get ready since it's not long before your final, scum," said Riaz with the same smile and left and closed the door, leaving the dark place where Ice was, and he just started spitting blood, or rather vomiting. A week ago it was the day of Ice's trial, but for this it was the best day of his life since he was finally dying, and in front of them were the leaders together with that bitch and that damn thing that called himself his father. "Last word, Ice Hayadu," said Serziches with a mocking tone together with the others who began to laugh together at the girls who right since seeing Ice in that way excited her more than normal. "That's right, sons of your bucking father, plus that bitch that was winged by that bad birth, we'll see each other in the next life, you bucking bastards," I said in a shout, so that everyone presented together to the leaders would charge an attack and launch it towards where Ice is. And he only saw how that attack approached him, and he only smiled since his suffering was finally over, and finally the attack hit him, erasing him from existence, and that day the supernatural world celebrated like it had never done before. Unknown place. The chestnut tree was seen floating in the air while he was just lying in the place. He doesn't know how long he had been there, but he imagines that he is already dead, or so it seemed. That's when he hears a voice. Hello Ice Hayadu, said the voice, so that Ice could only stop for air and see where that voice was coming from. Who are you and appear, I said with a dead and cold voice. In front of him he looks like a subject, his hair was black and blue eyes and white foot. I introduce myself, my name is Lux, said the subject known as Lux. What do you want from me? Maybe you're the death that comes for the souls, I said with the same voice, and he only went a little, but he just shook his head. Follow me please, I will show you something that will catch your attention, Lux said to start walking, and Ice just looked at him doubtfully, since he no longer trusted anyone, not even himself, but I decided to go behind him, and for a moment another looks at him who was standing, but in front of him, there was a kind of hole. What is that? I said seriously, but if he noticed very well, he could see curiosity. This is the door between dimensions, Lux said, just a little surprised to Ice since he lost his emotions. Then I imagine that you are the guard of the dimensions, I said seriously, and he just nodded. That's right, I'm the guard who protects all dimensions without being in danger, Lux said calmly. That was just why he wanted to see me, I said a little angry, and Lux just looks at him calmly. See that dimension, Lux said while pointing one of his fingers at a hole. And what about that dimension? I said seriously. In that dimension, you do not have any brother and all the girls who betrayed you in your world, in that dimension you are happy, and with some of them you have children, said Lux. And what does Ice want me to applaud for him, or does he want me to congratulate him? I said angrily, and he just gave a long sigh. See that dimension, Lux said, pointing with one of his fingers, and Ice just nodded somewhat angrily. That dimension is where you come from, Lux said, slightly surprised to Ice. I think he's happy about my death and that bitch riding like never before, right, I said seriously, and Lux just nodded since he didn't want to hide anything from him. That's right, Ice, when they killed you, they only had a big party, and the girls only had a ritual, Lux said seriously. Ah, that's good, that's just what he wanted to tell me, because I'm leaving, I said angrily, ready to leave, but Lux stops him. He wants to avenge you, right? Lux said with a smile, strongly drawing Ice's attention since that was his dream, or rather his only dream. What do you mean by that? I said seriously since that was the only thing that interested him, nothing more. See that dimension, said Lux pointing above the dimension he was coming from, and he just nods. That same dimension is a little identical to yours, Lux said calmly and very angry to Ice. So there is a brother, and the same family, says I said angrily, and he just nodded while Ice clenched his fists angrily. So what does that dimension have to do with the other? Does he want to see me suffer? I said furiously. Calm down, Ice, it's not what it seems, you're already dead, Lux said for the first time seriously and surprised Ice by that. Listen well, I said without believing it. Yes, Ice, you're only 5 years old in that dimension, well he also suffered just like you, Lux said seriously, and Ice just looks away. I wanted to go to Grain, Lux, I said, already angry, and he just nodded. Ice brought your soul to send you to that dimension to protect it, Lux said seriously, and Ice listens to that and is a little surprised, nothing more. Because, said Ice seriously. I told you that you wanted to come, who hurt you, right, he told him, and Ice just nodded. Well, they will want to go to that dimension to conquer it, I said Luz, that did take him by surprise. I see, but I don't have powers, said Ice seriously since he would do anything to kill that idiot, but more so Rias. Then he will, Lux said, and Ice just nods. I told you that that dimension was only a little identical to yours, right, Lux said. That's right, it only had a few small details, nothing more. What are those details? I said seriously. In the underworld, there is a new house, and there is a rare and powerful sacred gear, Ice, Lux said, and caught Ice's attention, but only the sacred gear, nothing more, since he didn't give a shit about the underworld. What sacred gear are we talking about? I said seriously but at the same time curious. It's a dragon-type sacred gear, Lux said, and Ice heard that it was a dragon, he just clenched his fists tightly, since he also hates dragons. Don't worry, Ice, the name of that dragon is Rayquaza, and he comes from space, said Lux. That did take Ice by surprise, since he never in his life knew that a dragon came from space. That sacred gear was considered lost many years ago, or rather for millennium, Ice, said Lux. What a millennium, said Ice. 3,000 years, I said Lux seriously, and Ice just nods seriously. So if that sacred gear is lost, why do you mention that sacred gear to me? I said to see how Lux made a magic circle and out of it came a gauntlet just like Drag, but it was only green. This is the sacred gear, Ice. Why me and him decided to hide it, Lux said seriously. Now Ice was more than surprised. Because I was hiding it, I said without believing it. Because some used it for evil, as I told you, Ice, this sacred gear is much more powerful than the bleeding spear, Lux said seriously. So if it's dangerous, because they give it to me, remember that I can use it for my own good, I said seriously when he heard a voice. Ha 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 ha. I may be right kid, but I see your heart that you will never use it for evil, Rayquaza said with a smile and surprised Ice by that, and seeing behind Lux, the true form of Rayquaza, and Ice looked at him seriously. He was listening to us, I said seriously. That's right, from the moment you came here and told me to accept having my power to crush your dimension, said Rayquaza. I accept, we will protect that Rayquaza dimension together, I said, showing a little shine in his eyes, and Lux just gave a small smile. Ice, before I get to you, a very kind lady who always helped the Ice of that dimension got along very well, but she doesn't know anything about that Ice's death, Lux said. What is that lady like? I said seriously, and he only showed an image of a 27-year-old man with brown hair and blue eyes. He calls her ma'am, he's still a young idiot, I said seriously. Well whatever, she sees you as a son, Ice, Lux said, and Ice just nodded and saw how Lux understood his arm to see how the sacred gear was going towards him, and then it got into his body, and from one moment to the next, his arm right comes out the sacred gear. Now Ice, you and I are partners, Rayquaza said calmly. Yes friend, I said with some difficulty, and Rayquaza understood that Ice may have some distrust of him. Ice, before I leave you, I will give you this weight, accept it as a gift, Lux said with the same smile, and Ice only sees it as something curious, and from one moment to the next, he sees how Lux's right hand formed a sword. That sword is Bahamut, Ice said a little surprised. That's right, but it's not like your world, Ice, it's much more different, Lux said. What does it mean? I said curiously. It's like a sacred gear, which can also summon armor, said Lux, that surprised Ice. I'll give it to you, Ice, so that I don't reveal your identity if necessary, Lux said, and Ice understood by the identity he was referring to Rayquaza, and without further ado, he just took my sword. Thank you very much, said Ice with a little gratitude. No problem, take care of yourself, Ice, make an Ice life in that dimension, Lux said, and Ice just nodded, since that was going to be impossible, and without further ado, Lux sent Ice's soul to the dimension where he lived. I hope I do what I did before, Lux said in a very serious tone, although he was calm because he knew that his friend was taking care of him, to see the dimension where Ice came from, to see how everyone was partying, and Ice's ex-harem having hex with ritual. I hope Ice kills him in a very cruel way, Lux said seriously and with disgust to see again the dimension where Ice sent, but he was in the underworld and saw that there was a blonde girl with blue eyes. You are his light, Lux said to leave Hay and rest, since he was very exhausted from bringing Ice's soul to this place, and sending it to another place was more difficult. Chapter 2. You could see a body of a child lying in the forest, his hair was brown, and from one moment to the next that same body began to glow a little, and then I opened my eyes, but he had a cold and emotionless look, and the little boy only saw his hand as he opened it and closed it again. You're fine, mate, Rayquaza said calmly. That's right, Rayquaza, can you make me a dragon please, I said seriously. Okay mate, but it will be ready the next day, Rayquaza said seriously. Okay, well you make me a dragon, I'm going to find a place to sleep tonight, I said seriously. It's okay, said Rayquaza. Also, I have a little memory of this world, but it is blurry, I could look for the other memories, said Ice. Ice had already planned that, when I have a little information I will tell you, although as Lux told you, this dimension is identical to yours, but only a few things change, like one more house in the underworld, me, and now this, said Rayquaza seriously. That will be, but I never died at that early age, Rayquaza said Ice seriously. Well, I think you're right, I'm going to look for the memories of this Ice, goodbye, Rayquaza said, so that the gem would disappear. Although I wonder why he didn't give me the information about this world, Ice thought. But he decided to leave Hay and look for a cave for him to sleep that night, and he found one, and without further ado, he had fallen asleep, Hay, since it was not as worse as he lived in that torture room. While he was sleeping, Rayquaza was turning Ice's body into the dragon little by little, while he saw some memories of this Ice, and he could only shake his head. Without a doubt, some of this Ice experienced torment with the Gremory Eris and Citri, Rayquaza thought seriously. But I already knew what that lady was like who helped Ice of this dimension. She was very young as Lux said, but she couldn't have a child, that was why she got along so well with the Ice of this dimension and Rayquaza. Let's see what he had already collected. A lot of Ice information from this world. Decided to sleep. The next day. The brunette began to open his eyes and then sit down since for a strange reason his chest was burning when he heard the voice of his new partner. Don't worry, Ice, you're already a dragon, it's just that your body is being completely assimilated, said Rayquaza. I see, it's funny, tell me who knows that myself from this world, said Ice seriously. Well, at this time you met the Gremory and Citri with your brother Rito, and the two of them had told the supernatural to your parents, and from there the Ice torture began, said Rayquaza, summarizing the thing since he did not want to tell several things. Stuff. I see, wherever I go I will always find suffering, but it is something that no longer matters to me, I said seriously and with a cold look. He went to a river that was near Hay and took a bath, and when he came out he saw that there was a wolf that was looking at him, and Ice just took out his sword, and in one quick movement, Ice pierced his heart, and the wolf fell dead. And Ice just took the thing and started dragging it on the ground to collect rock and some pieces of wood to cook the wolf, and without further ado, he put the wolf on the fire, and when it was there the wolf was already cooked he started to eat it. You could see a body of a child lying in the forest, his hair was brown, and from one moment to the next that same body began to glow a little, and then I opened my eyes, but he had a cold and emotionless look, and the little boy only saw his hand as he opened it and closed it again. "You're fine, mate," Rayquaza said calmly. "That's right, Rayquaza, can you make me a dragon please?" I said seriously. "Okay mate, but it will be ready the next day," Rayquaza said seriously. "Okay, will you make me a dragon? I'm going to find a place to sleep tonight," I said seriously. "It's okay," said Rayquaza. "Also, I have a little memory of this world, but it is blurry, I could look for the other memories," said Ice. Ice had already planned that, when I have a little information I will tell you, although as Lux told you, this dimension is identical to yours, but only a few things change, like one more house in the underworld, me, and now this, said Rayquaza seriously. "That will be, but I never died at that early age," Rayquaza said Ice seriously. "Well, I think you're right, I'm going to look for the memories of this Ice, goodbye," Rayquaza said, so that the gem would disappear. Although I wonder why he didn't give me the information about this world, Ice thought. But he decided to leave Hay and look for a cave for him to sleep that night, and he found one, and without further ado, he had fallen asleep Hay, since it was not as worse as he lived in that torture room. While he was sleeping, Rayquaza was turning Ice's body into the dragon little by little, while he saw some memories of this Ice, and he could only shake his head. Without a doubt, some of this Ice experienced torment with the Gremory Eris and Citri, Rayquaza thought seriously. But I already knew what that lady was like who helped Ice of this dimension. She was very young as Lux said, but she couldn't have a child, that was why she got along so well with the Ice of this dimension. And Rayquaza, let's see what he had already collected. A lot of Ice information from this world. Decided to sleep. The next day. The brunette began to open his eyes and then sit down, since for a strange reason his chest was burning when he heard the voice of his new partner. "Don't worry, Ice, you're already a dragon, it's just that your body is being completely assimilated," said Rayquaza. "I see, it's funny, tell me who knows that myself from this world," said Ice seriously. "Well, at this time you met the Gremory and Citri with your brother Rito, and the two of them had told the supernatural to your parents, and from there the Ice torture began," said Rayquaza, summarizing the thing since he did not want to tell several things. "Stuff. I see, wherever I go I will always find suffering, but it is something that no longer matters to me," I said seriously and with a cold look. He went to a river that was near Hay and took a bath, and when he came out he saw that there was a wolf that was looking at him, and Ice just took out his sword, and in one quick movement, Ice pierced his heart, and the wolf fell dead. And Ice just took the thing and started dragging it on the ground to collect rock and some pieces of wood to cook the wolf, and without further ado, he put the wolf on the fire, and when it was there the wolf was already cooked, he started to eat it. When he finished eating, he decided to go to the city, and when he arrived at the city of Cow, he was the center of attention since his clothes were torn and some were cut on his body, but it was something that Ice did not care about at all. But just then he hears a voice behind him and sees a 27-year-old girl with a voluptuous body, brown hair and blue eyes. "Who is she?" Ice thought seriously. "She is the girl who helped this Ice," Rayquaza said in his mental link, and Ice just nods. "Ice finds you fine," the girl said worriedly to begin to see the wounds that Ice had all over his body. "Ice, you have to go to the hospital," the girl said, but Ice didn't move. "Don't worry, I'm fine," I said with a cold tone, which surprised the girl since he had never spoken to her before. "More like Rayquaza, what's it called?" said Ice in his mental link. "Her name is Karen," I answer, and Ice just nods. "I went to your house and they told me that he's no longer alive, they threw you away," said Karen, worried about Ice. "Yes, they kicked me out of that place, and I don't even have a place to live," I said seriously, and Karen just looked a little surprised since he always behaved well with her, but now he seems like a different person. "If you want, you can live with me," Karen said happily, since she won't be able to be alone in her house anymore. "And your parents won't be upset," I said seriously, and the Karen looked at him confused. "My parents are dead," Karen said sadly, and Ice only clenched his fists a little as it appears that he touched a sensitive spot in the girl's life. "I'm sorry, I didn't remember," I said as quickly as possible. "Because Ice asks me a lot, I had already told you my whole life," said Karen, a little curious. "It's just that they hit me hard on the head, that's why my memory is very blurry," said Ice, and the girl just nodded. "We're leaving," Karen said, and he just nodded, and Karen went to a parking lot to see his car, which was a luxury one. Maybe she's a millionaire, Ice thought, to get in the car and leave with Karen, but wait 10 minutes, and finally Karen's house had arrived. It was coming to me, Ice thought very calmly since he had seen the biggest house he was seeing in front of his eyes. She's sure she wants me to live with you, Karen, I said seriously. Yes, Ice, besides, like I told you, I don't want to live alone in that big house, plus you sometimes called me mother and not Karen, Karen said confused and Ice just thought a little. I'm sorry, but since a lot of things have happened to me, I no longer trust anyone, not even my own shadow, I said coldly, which made Karen shiver, but he was right, she knew very well what he did to her when she lived in that family. Well, I'm going to buy some clothes, if you like, and you can take any room, Ice, Karen said, and Issei just nodded and watched as Karen got into her car and left there. Now let's do Ice, Rayquaza said seriously in the Metal Link. First, what are your powers, I said seriously in his mind. Well, some of my abilities can cancel out climate change, I answer. Then I can use that ability to cancel all the attacks of that damn Joker, right, I said seriously, and by Joker, he was referring to Dulio, who has the second most powerful Longinus in his dimension. That's right, mate, now what are you going to do at this moment, said Rayquaza, as he names all his lazy ability, and I would tell him another time. I am going to train in the forest right now, and also with this sword that made me shine, I said seriously, since he wanted to see what this sword has, that made him look like Bahamut in his world. It's okay, mate, I'm going to sleep, I'm tired, said Rayquaza for short communication with Ice. He walked alone to the mansion and found a pen and a notebook to let him know that he was leaving and that later he would return and went towards the forest so that no one would bother him. Ice had arrived in the forest, but in a place where no one would see him, and he took out his sword and began to make quick movements since he wanted to have his power back and he knew very well that this would take too many years. But Rayquaza gave him some advice that they put weights on their clothes and Ice accepted and started with 10 kilograms, but he made a barrier so that no one would feel his power. So Ice had 9 hours training without stopping. When he saw the destruction he didn't care at all and decided to leave Hay, but he hid behind a tree and Hay, a magic circle came out and 2 girls came out of Hay. One of her was a blonde with blue eyes and the other one had light blue hair and eyes of the same color. Ice looked at the 2 girls seriously since he felt that the 2 of them were demons and one of them spoke. You're sure you felt that energy here, the girl told him. I'm more than sure, I feel like it was a sacred dragon gear, said the blonde seriously. That can't be dangerous for us, we are girls, said the light blue-haired girl. Don't worry, Krulsifer, it must be a weak sacred gear, said the blonde girl. What do you want, says Celestia-sama, Krulsifer said a little doubtfully. Well, the formerly Red Emperor Dragon Arm must be in its new container since it is 6 years old since its wearer died and taking into account that now its wearer is at least 5 or 6 years old, nothing more, said Celestia with great calm. And the White Emperor Dragon, Krulsifer said a little calmer. Well, I died alongside the Red Emperor Dragon wielder in a bloody battle and he must also have a new wielder of almost the same age, Celestia said calmly. So what could it be? Said Krulsifer. Well, it's most likely one of the Vritra pieces, Celestia said thoughtfully since she only knew 3 dragons, but she knew there was another sacred dragon type, but that one was already lost. What's wrong with Celestia-sama? Krulsifer said curiously. Now I remember that there was another dragon-type sacred gear, said Celestia seriously, and Krulsifer only paid attention. What sacred gear, said Krulsifer. The Longinus, the most powerful among sacred gear, said Celestia seriously. What is that sacred gear, he told him since the only sacred gear and the most powerful was the spear that pierced Jesus. Well, 3,000 years ago there was a powerful dragon, it was admired by some and feared by others, but when the first war broke out between factions of destiny, the dragon was half asleep during that war, but some attacks made it rise, but it was he got up very furious that he made the 3 large factions make a temporary truce to kill the dragon, but they did it at the cost of a lot of life. He even almost killed the leaders of each faction, but what happens with the god guy who made him a sacred gear, but what he didn't know is that every wearer he had was taking revenge on the faction, even his wearers wanted to destroy everything, but out of nowhere that sacred gear was considered lost a long millennium ago, that's why I don't think that that sacred gear is here. Celestia ended up saying and Krulsifer was trembling with fear. And what was that dragon's name? Said Krulsifer, a little afraid. Well, if I remember correctly, his name was Rayquaza, said Celestia. Ice only listened attentively to that story, but he could only shake his head because of a simple attack. Rayquaza died, but he had the idea how the dragon slayer died from the Ascalon sword and he saw how that girl left Hay and he decided to leave Hay too. There is in a magic circle. Ice appeared in a magic circle a little far from Karen's house and went inside and saw that Karen was looking at him very worried. Ice, he's okay, look, he's very hurt, said Karen, worried like a mother. I'm fine, I'm going to take a bath, he told her, and she just nodded, but she told him that the bathroom had her clothes, and he just nodded and left. When he finished bathing, he went downstairs to eat and saw Karen already putting I plated them on the table. Tell me, Ice, tomorrow you are going to school, Karen said, a little curious. Yes was his only answer, even though he knew all that he had to study. In the underworld. The two girls appeared in a magical circle, and in front of them were Celestia's parents. They were the Ralgris house. Hello mom, Celestia said with a smile. Hello Celestia and Krulsifer, said Celestia's mother. She had a good body that would make any man fall for her charm. She was even desired in the underworld. Hello, daughter, said Celestia's father, who had the appearance of a young man, 27 years old, with blonde hair and blue eyes, like his daughter and wife, and she returned the greeting. Tell me, did you find that little dragon power? Said Patriarch Ralgris. No mom, he had already left that place when we arrived, Celestia said, and they just nodded. We're going to play, Celestia said, and they just nodded and both infants left, leaving the parents alone. May sacred gear be my dear, said her husband. I don't know, Alex, but most likely, it was one of the Vritra pieces, said his wife. I think you're right, Celial, Alex said to hug his wife and leave. Chapter 3. Several things had already happened in just 4 days, such as Ice sometimes receiving a visit from a demon where he trained, but it was the same demon that had seemed to do 4 days ago, and that bothered him a lot since he couldn't train well, since sometimes he used dragon aura. But at this moment Ice was concentrating his dragon aura. In the underworld Ralgris territory. The girl was sitting having a cup of tea until she felt a dragon aura and a vein popped out in her head, since she had been feeling the same aura for 4 days, but this time it was not going to go away so easily, and without further ado, she made a circle. Magical and left Hay to go to the human world. In the human world. Ice had launched a slash with the sword, since there was concentrated all the aura that was saved. Well done partner, your level and resistance increased a lot, said Rayquaza in Ice's mind. He's right, but it's not the smallest part of my power. When I had that damn dragon in my body, I said with hatred in his voice, and Rayquaza just nodded since he knew who he was referring to was Drake. We have Ice company, he told him seriously, and he just nodded and turned to look behind him. You know, I'm an annoying girl, I said with cold eyes, but the girl in front of him wasn't making it easy for him either since she was looking at him in the same way she did. So it was you who made all this mess, Celestia said with cold eyes. That's not your problem, demon, I said seriously. You know that it is my problem, because it can bring a renegade demon and harm the humans, said Celestia seriously, since she was not going to please Ice. A demon, protected by humans, don't make me laugh, all demons only seek power and nothing more, I said seriously. Even if you don't believe it, we do it, I reply. You are only looking for us because of our sacred gear, nothing more, said Ice seriously, grabbing his sword to put it on his back. And if that were the case, they would have already asked you, but I didn't do it, Celestia said seriously. I don't give a damn, I'm leaving, he told her to leave, leaving the girl alone. What's wrong with that child? Celestia said, upset by that boy's attitude, but she also decided to leave, since she didn't have anything to do either, and she formed a magic circle and left that place. Ice walked towards where he lived now, but he had to admit, she cared for him as if he were her son, and he promised to protect her, and without a supernatural being, he touched the only woman who could call her mother, they were going to pay dearly with his faction. But Ice sometimes received scolding because when he arrives from the academy he throws his backpack and goes to train as always, but he came all hurt and with his clothes all damaged. Of course for Karen money was not a problem, but it did worry her, as always, Ice came. But he just said it was fine. Ice was in front of his house, and without further ado he entered where Karen was at the table who only had one bag on the table. Oh, there's a shirt and some pants, Karen said with a cup of tea while looking at Ice with a smile. Ice just gave a sigh, she already knew what her daily routine was like, but she still worried a lot. Brace was what Ice said to go to the shower, he only waited 30 minutes to see how Ice came down the stairs, but she already had the food, and without further ado, she just sat down to eat. Tell me, Ice, have you heard from them? Karen said seriously, and Ice, listen, just stop eating. They are nothing to me anymore, the only family I have now is you, and no one else, said Ice seriously. It's okay, Karen said to continue eating, and when they finished eating, Ice went to his room and Karen just stayed, fixing the plates. The next day. Ice opened his eyes little by little, he took advantage of the fact that it was Sunday, he trained all afternoon, and when he came down he saw Karen, the woman he considered a mother although she never told him. The food is here, but please don't come very hurt, I don't know what you do, but you always come hurt, Karen said worriedly. Okay, I said as if he had nothing to eat his food as quickly as possible, and when he finished eating he said goodbye to Karen, and she did the same and Ice left there doing what thing? Ice had arrived at the place where he always trained, and the first thing he did was he started running with his shirt and pants, some of which he had 20 kilograms, and when he finished running his 5 lap he started jumping and doing sit-ups. 96, 97, 98, 99 and 100. Ice finished saying to get up. "Well done mate, now your stamina has increased by 5 days, and your magic too," said Rayquaza. "Yes, let's see how the lightning comes out," Ice said seriously, and without further ado, he joined his hand to stop the lightning coming out, and Ice just started. I opened my hand so that the lightning could be understood around Ice. But he threw it on a large rock so that that same rock would cease to exist. "Well, it's improved a lot," I said seriously. "Ice, your girlfriend came," Rayquaza said in a mocking tone that made Ice angry. "Now what do you want, demon?" I said seriously, but at the same time annoyed, and behind him was Celestia, who looked at him in the same way as Ice. "I told you not to cause any more problems in this forest," said Celestia, serious and angry. "As I told you the day before, I don't care what he says to me, girl," I said, already annoyed without them realizing that this was seen by Celestia's parents. A little far from there. Celestia's parents just looked at that with a smile, since there was someone who was not afraid of their daughter. "That's why I always came," Celestial said with a smile. "Although I wonder why that child is so cold and serious," Alex said seriously. "You're right, we know about our daughter, but what about that child?" said Celestial with a serious face. But he only heard the scream of an idiot, a fool on Celestia's part, but on Ice's part, he only called him a demon, but Alex and Celestial noticed something serious. That simple word came full of hatred, anger and a thirst for blood that made them both nod their heads as they thought the same thing. That child had a hatred towards demons, although they wondered why, but they decided to leave there. With Ice and Celestia. "Go away," I said seriously. "You're a fool, you can't talk to yourself, you're a child full of egos," Celestia said to make a magic circle and leave, leaving Ice alone. "It was time," said Ice seriously. "Comrade, did you feel the 2 great auras a moment ago?" said Rayquaza in the Ice Mint link. "Yes, just for a moment, when they formed that magic circle, but I had no bad intentions," I said seriously. "That's true, but they were." I was going to say Rayquaza until Ice speaks, but his voice carried hatred and anger. "Demon," I said in a whisper in the outside world. "I'm going to continue training," said Ice seriously, grabbing his sword and talking a lot about movement with the sword. When he finished training with the sword, he only saw that it was going to be night. He just made a magic circle and entered there to leave there. At Karen's mansion. Ice appeared in a circle a little far from the mansion and walked to it in front of the port, and when he opened it, he saw Karen sitting putting the plates on the table, and he just walked inside. "Hello," was what I said. "Hello, Ice, your clothes are in the bathroom," said Karen, already tired, as Ice came with all his clothes damaged, and tomorrow I would have to buy him more clothes. "Okay, when I finish showering, I'll come down," I said, and she just nodded, and Ice went up to his room to get into the shower and take a bath. When he finished bathing, he went down to the living room and saw that the food was already ready, and he just sat down. "Have a good time," Karen said, and Ice told her the same thing, so they both started eating, and when they finished they went to sleep. The next day. Karen went to the mall to buy more clothes for Ice, since he always came with his clothes torn, although she wondered what he always did to make him come with his clothes all damaged. That was her question that was always in her head, but when she finished the shopping she went to her vehicle and without further ado got in and left, but along the way Karen noticed something strange. The sky was purple and she got out of her car, but she started to walk a little until the car suddenly exploded and Karen was blown away. Luckily, she was far from the car, and when she looked up, full of blood, she saw a guy who had bat wings. "Ahaha, look, I found a human, let's see what this human has," said the demon with an arrogant smile and a lustful look, and she is only scared by that. Far from there is. Celestia calmly walks the streets of the city of Kuo, since she was going to guard the city with Ria's Gremory and Sona Citri. Celestia never liked those 2 girls very much, but Ria's was even more spoiled since her brother was the current one. Demon King with Sona since his sister was one of the Demon Kings. Where are those 2 spoiled girls? "I haven't seen her in years," said Celestia, since she was 2 years old and hadn't seen that before. She feels an anti-human barrier. "Demon, who will it be?" Celestia said seriously to run where the anti-human barrier was, felt to see a brunette with blue eyes completely hurt, and she launched an ice attack and the demon just dodged it completely and went to where the lady. "Madam, it's okay," Celestia said, worried about the human she had in her arm. "Girl, run away from here," Karen said, worried about the girl who was holding her. "Don't worry, let's get out of here," he told her to leave her on the ground to see the demon who was in front of them. "Renegade demon is going to die," Celestial said seriously, and the demon just started laughing like crazy. In the forest where Ice was training. Ice had finished his training for today, but then he heard his friend's voice in his head. Comrade, I feel a barrier, not far from here, Rayquaza said seriously, and Ice decided to see if it was true, and it was true, it was not very far from there. I feel 3 energy, 2 are demon, and the other is a human, I said seriously, although for a strange reason something told him to go as fast as possible. What are you going to do, Rayquaza said seriously. I'll go was his only word to make a magic circle and enter there to leave there. On the battlefield. Celestia was a little hurt since the demon that was in front of him was much more powerful than her, and she just looked at the human that was behind him and thought how she could flee from there since she only had the strength to flee alone, but she didn't want to. Leave the human alone and saw how the demon came down. What's wrong, girl, maybe you can't do it anymore, said the demon with an arrogant smile, and when Celestia was speaking, a circle formed on the ground and from there a chestnut tree came out and Matchmaker looked at that chestnut tree with a look of hatred. You, what are you doing here? Said Celestia, serious and at the same time a little angry, and Ice just ignored Celestia's words and just looked behind her and saw who the human she felt on the mountain was. Ice only opened his eyes in surprise at how the person he considered a mother was hurt and full of his own blood, and he just went to see how Karen was and asked if she had a pulse, but luckily she had a pulse and he went to where Celestia was. I'll take care of her, Ice said with his eyes on the ground, and Celestia just nodded a little nervously. You were the one who hurt my mother, I said with a very cold voice that made the demon and Celestia shiver. If it was me, now what are you going to do? Said the demon with a tone of arrogance. I will kill you in the worst possible way, you damn scum, said Ice, raising his gaze that showed deep hatred. It was worth it, Rayquaza thought, for seeing that look from Ice. Chapter 4. The demon was only trembling with fear since Ice's gaze really gave him deep fear. He wasn't the only one who looked at that with fear, but Celestia also didn't know that that boy was that dangerous. Ice with a quick movement kicked him in the face, sending him to courage, but Icy didn't stop. Then he looked behind him and with both feet he kicked the demon's sword and the demon got up and launched an attack. To Ice, but he doesn't even flinch, they just take a hit on that simple attack and it destroys him. Who are you? Said the demon, feeling the fear. I'm your worst nightmare, said Ice with a very cold voice that would make the demon fear him more. Then look how Ice disappeared from there and was now in front of him, and Ice without thinking about it, began to hit him hard, very hard, even without for Ice to notice, his hair lengthened a little, and rays came out of his body even after the blows he was given. Ice stopped him from hitting the demon, and he just fell to his knee and just looked up as Ice looked at him with a look of hate and anger, out of pity for the person he considered a mother, and swore that he would protect her even with his life if necessary. Spare my life, please, said the demon, really terrified. You were going to forgive my mother, said Ice, and the demon just stayed silent since he didn't know how to say that. That's right, you were going to kill her, even though she was begging you like she's asking now, Ice said seriously, and the demon just stood up ready to leave, but Ice appeared in front of him and just buried his hand towards him. Stomach. The demon only fell dead due to the amount of blood he lost, and Ice only removed his hand, letting the body fall, so that he deactivated that state unconsciously. He went to where his mother was and due to his misfortune, Celestia had recovered a little of her magic. I had cured Karen a little. Don't worry, she'll be fine, Celestia said with a smile. DSK Ice just grimaced. Although I don't want to say it, I owe you a demon, said Ice, leaving hatred on one side. I didn't know she was your mother, said Celestia. That's not your scary demon, said Ice seriously. Can you let me tell you, devil, I have a name and my name is Celestia Ralgris, Celestia said, a little annoyed. DSK it was Ralgris, said Ice to raise his mother and make a magic circle ready to leave. You're leaving, the conversation was getting interesting, I even felt like I could fall in love with you, Celestia said with a smile. Those are not and will never be my intentions, Ralgris, I said with a cold but at the same time serious voice. Yes, 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 whatever you say, Celestia said as if without anything. By the way, I know that you know the Gremory very well and Citri didn't talk to him about me, I said seriously to disappear from there. Celestia was surprised by that since she didn't know that that boy knew that too spoiled girl, although for a strange reason he decided to listen to him and not say anything about him, he decided to call his father to come and with some demons to clean the place that Ice made. Karen's mansion. Ice had appeared in a magic circle in the living room of the mansion and saw that she was fine, she was only hurt, but thanks to Celestia she was out of danger. He decided to go to his room but heard Karen's voice. Ice, please wait, Karen said, and Ice just turned around and sat next to her. What do you want to know? Said Ice as he imagined what he wanted to know. What was that thing? Said Karen, and Ice without further ado decided to tell her all about his life. Narrated Ice. Ice began to tell the participants what the factions were, and when I told her that she understood and I began to tell her my story, how I met Ria's bitch, but I also told her that I was not the real Ice as she thinks. I had told her that Ria's Gremory was a demon who came from one of the most noble houses in the entire underworld, as I died at the hand of a fallen angel as she saved me, or rather as I had already planned. Then I told her about the Razor's engagement since she was engaged to a high-class demon, but there was a condition: if Ria's won the engagement was cancelled, but if they won the engagement continued, but we lost, but I didn't give up, and I went to the underworld to save the coast from my arm. Then I told him how a Grigori cadre wanted to start a war, that thanks to him and his former partner, it didn't happen, since the White Dragon Emperor had taken him away. As Michael and the Archangel Gabriel had given him the sword Ascalon. Then how the meeting was, between factions, like one of the original descendants of the Mau had attacked the leaders, like the White Dragon Emperor had betrayed him, and he was also the son of Lucifer. How was the party among the young demons? How was he also reunited with Asgard? How Loki had attacked him, how they had faced him, how he had won in that battle but was cursed by Loki. How he fought against the hero faction when he kidnapped the damn bitch Usaka and her damn daughter asking for help, but they won that battle. How he fought against Saryong in the raiding game, how he emerged a winner, how he fought against the Cows Brigade. But I started to cry as all my torture was going. When we won the war against the Cows Brigade, all my girls and the leaders betrayed me because of my stupidity, how I tortured him for years, how he had hex right in his eyes. End of Ice narration. Ice had finished telling his entire life, although almost not all of it, since he didn't want to make a long story short, and Ice only saw Karen with his eyes down. I think it's necessary for me to leave here, I said seriously, while wiping the tears that were in his eyes, and Rayquaza just looked at that seriously, since now his partner could become colder than he was. Karen just reacts and looks at Ice, who had gotten up from his seat. Although you are not Ice of this world, you are still the Ice that I once knew, Karen said with a smile to give him a hug, and Ice, without further ado, shed all his tears for all his suffering. Thank you was what Ice said as the hug continued. Someday he could be the same Ice, Rayquaza thought as he saw the scene in front of his eyes, and he decided to go to sleep. Thank you, Mom, he said again to Ice, but this time he said Mom and Karen listened, and that made her happy. No, rather thanks to you, Ice, Karen said with a smile because she was finally able to fulfill one of her dreams. Having a child. Karen separated her arm and told him that she was going to take a bath, and Ice only told her that he was going to his room, and the two went to his bedroom to sleep, but Ice didn't, since he was wondering what that power was that he had taken out. How he fought against that demon, but he didn't care and fell asleep. The next day. Ice and Karen had gotten up early since Karen decided to buy more clothes for Ice, since the demon that had attacked him destroyed his car along with Ice's clothes, and they both went to the mall. When they arrived at the mall, Karen was buying a large amount of clothes, while Ice was carrying the entire bag. It is necessary to buy so many clothes, said Ice, already tired from carrying so many things on his arm. Yes, remember, every workout he does destroys all your clothes, Karen said with a smile, and Ice just gave a sigh. Now he has you like a donkey, Rayquaza said in a mocking tone, and Ice only got angry about that, but I decided not to answer him. Look, Ice, she's not the girl who helped me yesterday, Karen said curiously, and Ice just turned his gaze and saw the person he didn't want to see in his life. What is she doing here? Ice said in a whisper. I'll go say hi, Karen said to go where the blonde was standing. Wait, Ice said while all the bags fell to the ground. He just got angry about that and picked it up quickly so as not to leave Karen alone. Hello girl, Karen said, and the girl just turned around and looked at Ice's mom, and if she was there it meant that he was there, and she just looked behind the woman and saw him carrying the shopping bag. Hello lady, how are you? Celestia said with a smile, so that Ice would arrive at that moment. Mom, let's go, Ice said seriously. Maybe he doesn't know how to say hello, said Celestina, annoyed, and Ice just looks at her and sticks his tongue out. He wants to come with us for dinner, Karen said calmly and surprised Ice by that, and when he went he protested and looked at Karen with a smile, and he just looked down. I would love to, ma'am, take my bag, Celestia said with a smile, and throws her bag towards where she had everything loaded with Ice's bag. Daughter of he was going to say, but he stayed silent to follow the two girls, and when they got to the car, Ice put the entire bag behind the car, and it only opened the door to get in first, and when Celestia was going to get in, Ice closed the door. Hey, maybe a lady like me doesn't know what to do, said Celestina, annoyed. Ice please, Karen said with a serious voice, and Ice, a little upset, opened the car door for Celestia to get in. Let's go, Karen said to drive, but with a rearview mirror she looked at Ice and Celestia, who both had an annoyed face. Well, they were murmuring some things that Karen doesn't hear, but they both do since she had better senses than a human, and luckily Ice had arrived at the house, and he opens the door to get out, but he throws the door in Celestia's face, and she is very angry. She opens the car door and confronts Ice. Hey, you fool, throw the door at me, Celestia said, annoyed, but Ice just ignored her and grabbed all of Celestia's smaller bags, took them inside and left them to her room. What's wrong with your son, ma'am, said Celestia. I'm sorry, but it's something he wants to keep as a secret, Karen said as she entered her house and prepared dinner. While Karen was having dinner, Celestia went to where Ice was since she wanted to know how he knew Riaz and Sona and told him. Found in his room. You haven't been told what could happen, I said seriously. Well, I don't care, tell me how to meet that too spoiled girl, Celestia said seriously. That's not your business, I said seriously as he went. I opened the door and left, and Celestia went after him since she wanted to know that, but Ice didn't give him an answer, he just ignored him completely until dinner since it was over. And the two of them only went to the table while they ate. Karen spoke. Tell me, Ice, when he asked Celestia out, Karen said casually. That made Ice a little upset and Celestia blushed because of that since she wasn't expecting that question. I'm going to make her not listen to that, I said seriously while continuing to eat. While Celestia was a little nervous since he had caught her off guard, she was just trying to control that blush until she finally could. When the three finished eating, Ice told him that he was going to leave Celestia, something that surprised the two women, but Karen just nodded and went to wash the dishes, and Celestia and Ice left the house to both go into a forest. Know what I'm going to tell you, I said seriously. No, I have no idea what he plans to tell me, Celestia answered calmly. I know she will be in charge of this city right along with the Gremory and Citri, I said seriously. That's right, was what Celestia said. Well, I will give you some advice. If some demon attacks my mother, then let it be clear to you that day let the demon faction exist, I said seriously to make a magic circle. Maybe he's threatening me, Celestia said seriously. Take it the way you wanted it, said Ice. Maybe I didn't have it and I was never going to hurt a person who is very kind to me, but in return his son is just a bad manner. Goodbye, Celestia said, serious about making a magic circle and leaving there. It's because you don't know anything about me, said Ice to also leave there. Chapter 5. Ice had appeared in a magic circle in the living room of the mansion. He no longer had any need to appear far from the house since his adoptive mother already knew about the supernatural and went where she was since he wanted to talk about a serious topic. And he saw that he was on the couch watching television. He just went to sit down. What's wrong, Ice? Karen asked doubtfully and Ice just took a long breath. Let's go to another country, was what Ice said, and Karen only opened her eyes in surprise since it wasn't coming. Because he wants us to leave the ice country, Karen said, really confused. Well, I need to train, there is too much problem here, besides I don't want to see the faces of the Haidu together with those two demons, Ice said with hatred in his voice. Okay, tonight we are leaving the country, Ice, Karen said calmly, and Ice just nodded and left. Karen just looked at Ice with sadness since she had never met someone who suffered as much as Ice, but I decided to buy the tickets. For the plane. Ice had a lot of thoughts in his head about what that state was like when he fought that demon. The night before he had also thought about it, but he had left it aside, but now he wanted to know what that state was. What does Ice think? Said Rayquaza, who had appeared on the torso of Ice's hand. It was that state that when I fought against that demon, I even felt that I had become a little more powerful, said Ice with great seriousness. I feel that too, but I think it may be that this Ice had these hidden abilities, I think, Rayquaza said like a scientist. I think you're right, but I'm going to prepare to leave this country, I said seriously. 12 years later. You could see a brunette with lighter hair than before and light brown eyes who was at a table next to a brunette with blue eyes having a cup. You're leaving, Ice, Karen said with an extremely calm look as she looked at her son. Yes, mother, I said with a cold but at the same time serious voice, and Karen only sighed. That time they left Ice had changed a lot. I understand, Karen said to see how Ice only grabbed his suitcase. See you later, said Ice as he left the mansion. I wonder how that girl is doing, Karen said to himself. Guo Academy Student Council room. You could see a blonde with crystal blue eyes and a voluptuous body that would kill anyone to have her in bed. She was sitting at a desk reviewing some papers. Then a girl with light blue hair and eyes of the same color entered. Hello, Celestia, you already found out, said the girl, and the blonde just continued looking at the papers. What about Krulsifer? Said Celestia very calmly. There's a new boy, his name is, a certain Ice, but I don't know his other name, Krulsifer said thoughtfully, but unlike Krulsifer, Celestia opened her eyes a little in surprise. Thank you, let me know, Celestia said, recovering her emotions. How are you, Lissachard, Philippi and Icky, said Celestia to change the conversation. They'll come later, I'll leave, Krulsifer said to Bo, and there he was, leaving Celestia alone. She just stood up from her seat and went to where the student council window was. Ice, then I will study here, Celestia said with a smile as she heard the academy bell, and she decided to go to her class. In the academy hallway. Ice walked calmly, but his look was something else, since he always walked with a cold and emotionless look, and when he entered his classroom, he only said his name and went to settle in his seat, although he was the center of everyone's gaze, but more the women, since for them that look made him see what they were more handsome. The class had ended and Ice was surrounded by women, but he just ignored him completely, since he was not interested in any woman and he left there. When he was walking down the hallway, a group of 5 people were behind Ice, and one of them spoke. "How long, Ice?" said Celestia with a smile, but his entourage looked at him curiously, since he did not know that his president knew him, and what was around him only paid attention to the conversation that was going on. "I say the same, Celestia Ralgris," I said with a cold and serious voice, just to look behind him and look Celestia in the eyes, but she was surprised by Ice's eyes. "Your eyes," said Celestia, surprised since she remembers that Ice's eyes were hazel and not light brown, but her entourage was confused since that eye color was normal for them. "What is my eyes?" I said with the same voice as always, but Celestia didn't know what to say, since she still hadn't come out of her shock. "If you have nothing to say, I'll leave," I said, starting to walk and getting lost in the hallway. "President, you know him," said one of the girls. Her hair was pink and her eyes were golden. "Yes, but let's leave that aside, let's go," said Celestia, coming out of her shock. "We're leaving," said another girl next to her hair was blonde with light red eyes. They just nodded, the group began to walk, although the boy in the group only asked himself one question. That was the boy who was always humiliated and beaten at the school where I studied, Issei thought, since he had only seen how he was beaten and humiliated throughout the school, although he was never able to talk to him since he had changed country, and there I let Issei. 8 p.m. Abandoned house. You could see a group of 5 people entering an abandoned house, and when they entered they saw a place that was completely destroyed. At that point they began to hear noise. "We know that there is a demon," said Celestia seriously, "and from there a demon comes out." Half of her body was human, but from the waist down, it was as if she had a bull's leg. "Hello little demons," said the renegade demon with a psychopathic smile. "For the name of my clan, we are going to destroy you, demon," Celestia said with pride in her word, and looked at her 2 knights, and they only formed 2 swords in her hand. Issei and Lissashire disappeared from sight, and at that moment the demon fell from both of her hands, and she only gave a roar of pain, but out of nowhere she took out 2 hands, surprising everyone, since she had never seen a demon regenerate in her life. "Philippi," Celestia said, looking at her tower, she just nodded, and they took a big jump and hit the demon's face with a big blow, who only fell to the ground. "Pulsifer would do me the honor," Celestia said with a smile, and she just nodded and formed 3 magic circles behind her, and threw water, electricity and fire, 3 elements at the same time, hitting the demon. Outside there is. Ice was walking in that same place since he felt 6 aura and went to see what was happening, and when he arrived at the place he saw how that girl and that boy cut off his arms, but how he had completely regenerated, and how that girl with pink hair who he gave a strong blow, and the Queen of Celestia, shot that 3 element. "No doubt she knows how to take her evil piece, right?" said Rayquaza in Ice's mental link. "Yes, that boy and that girl have great speed, more than that damned faggot Kiba, and that tower hit harder than Kaneko's street cat, and that queen knows how to control her magic very well than the damned masochist of the fall," I said with a cold and serious voice. "And the girl," said Rayquaza curious. "It may be that she has the same level as that 2 whore," said Ice referring to Riaz and Sona, but he avoided. Since he saw how Celestia increased her aura at once, surpassing a high-class demon by a lot, that undoubtedly surprised Ice a little, seeing how she launched an ice attack at the demon who only fell to the ground, but he realized. The demon's arm was something, but it wasn't the only thing. Inside the house. When Celestia fired that ice attack, she completely froze the demon. "Well, let's go," Celestia said, and her entourage just nodded, and when everyone was walking, they all saw how the arm that their knights cut off was going toward Celestia at a great speed, but it wasn't the only thing, it was an attack as well. "Be careful, Celestia," her entourage shouted to see the end of their king. She only closed her eyes out of fear, but a while passed, but she didn't feel anything, so out of fear she opened her eyes, but saw that the attack was no longer there. Just look behind her, how the arm that was crossing her was stabbed with a sword and the attack had completely disappeared. Then she heard everything as something was breaking, and she just looked up as the glass above became 1,000 heavy. And everything looked like a person going down to where the celestial. "The demon always trusts in a battle that can bring death," said Ice with a cold voice to take his sword, but everyone was surprised but even more blessed because Ice saved his life, although he wondered how he had gotten there, but he didn't give a thought. Importance, but she was grateful that Ice saved her. "Get out of there, demon," I said seriously, and another demon comes out in front of them. "Bala didn't know there was another person," said the demon with a mocking tone. "Shut up, your mouth," I said seriously while Celestia went to her entourage. I will kill you in the worst way, child, and then I will eat you, said the demon as he transformed into another form, surprising everyone except Ice, although he was a little surprised. Now the demon had a goat's leg and long horns and sharp teeth and eyes red like blood. I'm going to reveal that it's me, I said in his head. You're going to rebel against me, I answer, and Ice just nods. What's wrong? Maybe he's afraid, said the demon with an arrogant tone. Ice only looked down, but a glove began to form on his right arm, while a light illuminated that made everyone close their eyes. When the light was gone, everyone opened their eyes and looked at Ice's arm, which he had a green glove that highlighted golden beaks and a green gem. But Celestia and Krulcifer opened their eyes in surprise or rather terror at knowing that glove that Ice had, and she was not the only one, but also the renegade demon who looked at Ice with terror. But for Icky, Philippi and Lissachard, I didn't know why their king and queen were in that mode to see that sacred gear, although it should be important to leave that mode to their king and queen. What's happening means something. When your look changes from hope to despair, Ice was going to say following, but he formed an evil smile. It's a real pleasure for me, Ice finished saying with his evil smile. That's Ice, Celestia thought, surprised by Ice's great change, but she was somewhat sure that Ice was not how she had known him since she was a child. Chapter 6. The demon only looked at Ice with terror, and even more so because of that smile that looked at him, and also one thing that had been lost 3,000 years ago, the sacred gear Rigaluxdragon where Rayquaza's dragon soul is kept, one of the most powerful dragons that exist. Then this child Rayquaza's voice resounded, making everyone afraid to listen to the voice of that dragon that killed a lot of life in the first war between factions. You're calm and I'm nervous, said Ice seriously, and from one moment to the next everyone's vision disappears and he appears in front of the demon, who gave him a strong kick that sent the demon crashing. The demon had only stood furious and without allowing himself to be killed, he easily launched a fire attack, but Ice moved him aside, but the attack that the demon threw was where Celestia's group was, but they reacted quickly and made a barrier too that the attack collided with the barrier. Hey idiot, if you want help, could you counter that attack? Said Celestia, annoyed, leaving aside her surprise. I never said I was going to help him, for me he could kill him, said Ice with a cold and emotionless look, something that Celestia did the same since she was not going to be intimidated by a boy, and even more so if it was Ice. Perhaps Celestia already knows what his attitude is like, Icky thought with a bit of amazement at how those two looked at each other. Let's stop clowning around, said Ice, a little annoyed since he wanted to end this as quickly as possible, so that his glove would start to explode, something that scared the devil. The itching demon attacks like crazy but Ice dodged it easily and then he was in front of the demon. I was his only word for them to throw the lightning that only hit his face but took his left eyes as the demon moved by instinct. Ice just watched as the demon screamed in pain, he just started where the demon was so that his foot would step on the demon's head. Shut up, your noise started to bother me was what I said to step on his head and the demon finally died. The Ralgris clan was surprised but at the same time scared as Ice stepped on the demon's head without thinking twice and they watched as Ice made his sacred gear disappear. Wait, Celestia said seriously since she had to ask Ice a lot of questions. Don't give me the grace, I only did it because of what you did for my mother, just with this my debt to you is settled, said Ice to make a magic circle and leave there. Left everything with a very upset face because of that boy's attitude, although everyone noticed something very important, that boy hates demons. Well, we're done, we're leaving, said Celestia, already calm and her entourage just nodded. Wait, Celestia-sama, Icky said, but something serious was evident in his voice. What happened, Icky? Celestia said with doubt because of her knight's attitude and the others just stared at him. How do you know that boy? Icky said seriously. Well, I met him in the mountains when I was training, but from the beginning I didn't like him very badly, but as time went by I got used to his attitude because the question said Celestia. Well, I just wanted to know nothing more, he told her. Do you know him? Celestia said seriously. Not everything, but he and I studied in the same school when we were little, but he wasn't like that, Icky said seriously, drawing everyone's attention. What does Icky mean? Philippi said curiously. He always hit him at school, as soon as he entered there was a group of children who hit him with what he had in his hand, there were even rumors that his own family hit him, said Icky thoughtfully, which undoubtedly surprised everyone but the ones they were sad about that boy's life, but Celestia now understood why that boy was that cold. But one thing that if she didn't believe him was that his mother hit him. That's impossible, her mother doesn't hit her opponent, she's a kind lady, Celestia said seriously. As I said, they are rumors that I had heard when I was a child, Icky said to leave the room together with his partner, and Celestia only thought about one thing for a moment, although she would ask him that later. The next day at Kuo Academy. All the students had a drop of sweat since the student council president was standing in front of them with a cold and serious look who looked at the other person who was in front of her, that was Ice who also looked back at her, but a much colder one. All the students did not know what to do since there was no one who could stand Celestia's gaze, or so they thought since the new student did. "What do you want?" I said with a cold look. "I want to talk to you, and let's go to student council now," said Celestia seriously, since she wanted to know how he was the bearer of Rayquaza. "I didn't do anything wrong, so you want me to go to the student council since I won't go," I said seriously to leave. Celestia just watched as Ice left Hay, leaving her alone while the students looked at her, and she realized, and with a simple look they left Hay, she just took a deep breath to calm down, since she did not want to take it out on the students. "There are no others, I have to warn her," Celestia thought seriously, although she did not want to warn that girl anything but she should have her informed, but the worst of all she had to put up with the Gremory pawn, since he always looked at her with a lustful look, since she had a very good body that surpassed Ria's so easily, she left there. On the terrace of the academy. Ice was lying on the terrace of the academy since he wanted to be alone. "You know she won't stay silent," Rayquaza's voice sounded in Ice's head. "Well, let him restrain himself from the consequence," he responded with hostility, but murderous intentions were evident in his voice. "I will kill her," Rayquaza said seriously. "If she gets in my way, yes, without her also attacking me, I'll kill her, although I don't need it," I said with much more seriousness. Rayquaza didn't say anything, he just gave a big sigh. He knew that Ice didn't sink into the darkness, it was because of Karen, since she was one of Ice's reasons, but what Ice was missing was the love of a person who loved him, even if that it was going to be very difficult, 6 years of torture would change a lot. At the hidden club. The Gremory group together with Sona's entourage was waiting for Celestia with her servant. At that point the door opens revealing Celestia with her entourage. She just closes the door and walks towards where the two entourage were. "Tell me Celestia why you called us," said Riaz with a bored tone. "Believe me, I didn't even want to see you," Celestia thought angrily. "What you want to tell you is a very serious topic, and that includes you," Celestia said seriously. "Stop the rodeo, Celestia, get down to business," she said, sounding serious. Rayquaza's sacred gear seemed again at this time Celestia dropped the bomb. Riaz, Sona, Akeno and Tsubaki opened their eyes in surprise along with their entourage. They knew very well that that sacred gear was completely lost, and for someone to come and tell them that that sacred gear appeared out of nowhere was something impossible. "That's not true, that sacred thing has been lost for 3,000 years, Riaz said, totally serious. "Even if I don't believe it, it's the truth, yesterday I saw it with my own eyes with my entourage," said Celestia seriously, and they only look at Celestia's entourage, and they just nod as a sign that Celestia was telling the truth. "We have to tell the Formas about this," she said, sounding serious, and Riaz only supported that idea. "No, let's let this continue as it is, since if we tell the Mau they will not hesitate to eliminate that person," Celestia said seriously, although inconsistently she looked at Rito, not because she would like him, it's not that he had a great resemblance to Ice. Riaz and Sona only clenched their fists tightly, since it was true that they would not hesitate to eliminate that person, then they heard Drake's voice. "He studies here, right?" Drake said seriously, that also took him by surprise. "What did you say, Drake?" said Rito, surprised. "As you heard, today I could feel his dragon aura," said Drake, seriously. "Why didn't you tell us that Celestia was studying here?" Riaz said seriously. "Well, I forget," Celestia said as if she had nothing to get up from her seat. "At least she knows the boy's name," she said, sounding serious, although what Celestia was going to say left Riaz and herself in stone. "Ice," was what Celestia said seriously, but she saw the surprised face of both heiresses. "Because he is surprised by a simple name," or what Celestia said seriously, but she remembers a part of the past. "Don't say anything about me to Gremory and Citri," he remembered Ice's word. "No, it's nothing," Riaz said as quickly as possible, since she didn't want Celestia to find out what she did in the past with Sona. "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Icky said seriously. Which said a somewhat nervous right. "You look a lot like him," Icky said seriously, and that was certainly tense at Riaz and Sona's right, which was noticed by everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about, I'm the only child of my family," Rito said as quickly as possible, and when Icky was speaking, Celestia just stood up. "It's true, Icky doesn't look anything alike, let's go," Celestia said seriously, but before leaving she looked at the two heiresses. "Don't even think about joining him in his room, he hates demons," was what Celestia said to leave Hay with her entourage. "Ice is still alive," thought Riaz, Sona and Rito at the same time. Although Riaz and Sona had other plans for Ice, the more she knows that Ice is a carrier of Rayquaza, they will undoubtedly let that opportunity slip away. "Kaneko, I want you to follow that Ice guy," was what Riaz said in a serious tone without knowing that she was putting her tower's life in danger. "You too, Momo," she said sounding serious. "Wait, you didn't listen to Celestia Sama's warning," Tsubaki said seriously. "Don't worry, she told us that so we could leave her alone," Riaz said confidently. Greg only listened to that while he got angry because he knows he wanted to join that boy for having a living legend inside his body, but he decided to go to sleep, although he was also to blame since he also agreed to have his sacred gear removed. Inside his body, although he wondered something. How could he have Rayquaza? That was your question. Hello, Momo and Kaneko, she said, sounding serious, and they both just nodded and I left. On the street of Cow City. Ice was walking calmly down the street of the city of Cow, but at that moment Ice felt that he was following him, and he knew who it was, Kaneko, Momo and the other one was a fallen angel, and he knew who was also responsible for them getting into the world. Supernatural Rainer. Ice decided to go to a part where there weren't many humans and went to the park since he knew that no one was going there, and when he got to the park, he formed an anti-human barrier. Come out of your hiding place, you damn scum, was what I said in a serious tone, surprised at the three who had been watching him, and without further ado, the three of them came out. There was Momo and Kaneko in a corner, and Rainer only went down to the ground. If you know, the three of them were already more than dead, since Ice was going to take revenge on Rainer and then on Kaneko and Momo, although she was not the real one who hurt him, but in the future he was going to do it, or that's what he was supposed to do. Far from the forest. Celestia's group and herself were going to a restaurant for her to eat, but those plans went to waste because they felt an anti-human barrier. They went as fast as possible, and when they arrived at the park they felt 4 energy, but some of that was fallen angel and 2 demon and 1 dragon. They were doubtful who that 4 different aura could be, and without further ado, they entered the barrier to know who that aura was, and when they arrived at the place they were very surprised because they know who those 2 demon aura were, and even more so they know who the dragon aura was. Riaz and Sona, what they did, Celestia said to himself. Chapter 7. Ice only looked at the 2 demons and the fallen angel who was Rainer. My birthday is early, I said with a cold tone. Kaneko and Momo just nodded, and when she wanted to leave, Ice just looked at her. Where are you planning to go? I said with a very serious tone, so that 2 circles above Kaneko and Momo fell on top of them, but nothing happened from now on. The 2 of them fell to the ground, feeling their bodies weigh them down a lot, even the 2 of them couldn't breathe well. Very soon it will be his turn, said Ice with a voice of hatred. He was not going to deny that seeing her in front of him, and even more so, made the academy want to kill her in the worst possible way. Just look at the fall. But first I'm leaving with you, was what I said to disappear from Hay and appear behind Rainer, who screamed in pain since Ice had torn off his wings. Do you know you 3 are going to make my torture toy, said Ice with a cold tone to take out his sword that also emanated a dragon aura and put it in front of him, and at the same time he closed his eyes and began to say a chant. Protestant, the feast of the blood of the gods. Dragon of death fills the sky with black clouds, Bahamut Ice finished saying to raise his state, and it at the same time shines well behind Ice, an armor formed that covered Ice completely and shows his black armor. Everyone was surprised by what their eyes were seeing, they even felt afraid of Ice, since with that armor he looked imposing, and even more so if they listened well, Bahamut said. Celestia along with her entourage was really surprised by the sword that Ice had, although she could not confirm if it was the real Bahamut's sword, since that sword would never do something like that, and even more so make an armor that covered the entire body. Rainer was just trembling with fear and even wanted to leave Hay, but he couldn't break the anti-human barrier. It's useless to fall, everything that goes in doesn't come out again, not even our aura, was what I said, surprising everyone even more. So die once and fall, since I have 2 more to attend to, said Ice seriously to take flight upwards and look at Rainer running like crazy. Bagger machine dragon claw sword, I said so that his right hand came out with a kind of dragon claw and he only gave a horizontal cut that made Rainer cut in half. Ice only looked at Kaneko and Momo, who only gave him a look of hatred and disgust, but a quick movement from Ice appears above them. Momo and Kaneko looked up in fear to feel that Ice was stepping on her with a great force that even with her gravity sank further than she was, while she screamed in pain. Celestia and her entourage were surprised since they thought they were going to leave the girl alone, but they were wrong, since they only heard a scream of pain, even the bones that both women echoed in the place. They wanted to go help him, but something told them not to do it or else things would be worse than them, and then they saw how an arm came out of the hole where they were, then a foot. They only vomited because he was leaving that place, and then he didn't hear anything, they thought he was dead, but no, they saw how Ice came out of there, well he grabbed the hair of both women and threw him where Celestia and her son were. Cluster. They saw that Kaneko was missing his left foot and his right arm. I told you, I didn't want anyone to bother me, that's the result, said Ice with his cold voice. You knew we were here, Celestia said as best she could since she still couldn't get out of her fear. As you heard, everything that comes in doesn't come out, and I felt that you came in, and if you want to save this disgusting bitch's life, help her, was what he said to destroy the barrier. She's lucky that it wasn't the Gremory or the Citri, since they weren't going to see her alive, was what she said to leave Hay. Quickly, Krulsifer, bring the 4 phoenix tears, and your Icky and Philippi put pressure on him so he doesn't lose more blood, and your Lissashire go for his leg and arm, said Celestia seriously, and each of them did their job as quickly as possible. They are damn stupid, I told them not to do anything against him and look what comes out, that's why I didn't like them, Celestia thought, annoyed, for 30 minutes later. Kaneko and Momo were alive by a miracle, since they were able to treat her in time. What does that 2 Eris have in her head? Krulsifer said seriously. The 2 of them don't think just current, but I realized only one thing, Celestia said seriously, drawing everyone's attention. About what? Philippi said curiously. Ice not only hates demons, but also the fallen, Celestia said seriously. Yes, I noticed that too, Icky said seriously while cleaning his hand since it was full of blood. If you doubt anything, something happened to Ice, but because it has a great resemblance to a right, Celestia said seriously. It's true, it's like he's the brother, Krulsifer said seriously. And Riaz and Sona have something to say, because you can also see that Ice hates her with all his heart, said Celestia. But we don't know what to do, Philippi said. It's true, but the only thing to be is that Riaz and Sona already knew Ice before me since I was a child, said Celestia. You believe that, said Icky. Yes, since he mentioned her to me when we were a child, you know, let's leave this aside, erase his memory, Krulsifer, said Celestia. You're sure, I replied. Of course, since I'm more than sure that she will tell everything to her brothers, if Riaz and Sona find out what they did to her tower, remember that the 2 Mayu are very aware of that, said Celestia, annoyed, and she just nodded and told him. Erase the memory of the 2 towers. What do you think you're doing with her? Icky said, and Celestia just stared at him. Since our food was ruined because of those 2 girls, we'd better take it to her and tell her that she was passed out, we're going to hide all this, what happened, Celestia said seriously, and they just nodded and she went home. Of that spoiled. The next day, Karen's mansion. Ice had gotten up early because he wanted to train, that's why with his magic he made an underground floor and the gravity increased when he got used to it. Karen was just tidying up Ice's room when she heard the doorbell ring and went to see who it was, and when she opened the door, she revealed a blonde girl with crystal blue eyes and a matching sweater while she was eating some chocolate. Karen was amazed by the woman who was in front of her, since it was the first time she had seen such a pretty woman and an excellent body. I know you, Karen said curiously, although her face looked familiar. Well, I'm the girl who once invited her to dinner, said the girl, with a small visible blush as Karen looked at her. You're that girl, Karen said surprised, and she just nodded. How much he's grown, Karen said. Time passes, ma'am, Celestia said with a smile. Karen said, and she just goes ahead, and Karen just closes her mouth, and when she was going to say a word they both heard Ice's voice. Mom, who was it? I said while drying his hair, revealing his well-worked body, something that made Celestia blush because of it. Ice can let you dry your hair, said Karen, and Ice only paid attention since it was also covering his eyes, and when he took off the towel, he saw the person he didn't want to see even in his worst nightmare. What are you doing here, demon? I said, showing his cold and emotionless side. I told you that my name is Celestia Ralgris, airhead, said Celestia, annoyed. I want you to get out of here, I said seriously while expelling a murderous instinct, and when Celestia was going, Karen spoke. Ice, I want me to put a shirt on you, and Celestia is staying for dinner, Kaiten said seriously. It's okay, I said, hiding his killer instinct and left, annoyed. Come on, said Karen, but Celestia spoke. Excuse me, can you lend me the bathroom? Said Celestia, lying since she wanted to talk to Ice. Yes, let's go, Karen said, and she just nodded and she left, and Karen just went to prepare dinner. Celestia went up where she felt Ice's presence and was in the room, and without further ado, she entered to see Ice sitting on his bed, but he just looked up. Didn't you listen, or does he want me to leave you like that too, demon, said Ice seriously, although she never existed, his world had nothing against her, but he still didn't want to make friends. Kaneko and Momo, said Celestia seriously. That's not your business, I said seriously, ready to leave, but Celestia holds him up, he has his right arm. Because they too didn't do anything to make me leave her like that, Celestia said, more serious than she was. As I told you and I'll repeat it again, that's not your problem, I said seriously, ready to leave. Hey Piri, once again, he is held by Celestia. So, answer me something, since he has a great resemblance to the wearer of the boosted gear Torito, Celestia said seriously, and Ice just turned to look at her. The Red Dragon Emperor, said Ice seriously. That's right, I saw him for a long time yesterday when I left Kaneko and Momo, but the strangest thing is that he lives in his house, with some gentlemen who also have a great resemblance to you, Celestia said seriously. And what do you think? Said Ice. May they be your true family, because of your great resemblance to them. And not only that, I also saw a photo of you, where you had two gentlemen in a ritual, said Celestina seriously. That's right. Karen is not my real mother, and I am also Rito's brother, I said with displeasure in his voice. Celestia was not even surprised since she was just coming. Now that you know that, what do you plan to do? He said seriously. Nothing, that matter is not mine, I just wanted to confirm it, Celestia said calmly, ready to leave, but Ice holds her as a man, and she just looks at him. Don't say anything to Karen, said Ice, leaving his hatred aside. Don't worry, I wasn't planning on telling him anything, Celestia said calmly and went downstairs. Ice discovered Urikwaza's voice sounded in his head. I was coming up with this, but I think she's a little right, I said seriously, drawing Rayquaza's attention. What does it mean, said Rayquaza. This Ice went through the same thing as me, he suffered a lot at such a young age and died because they took away his sacred gear, I only have this body to fight with that bastard, I said. That means, said Rayquaza. You know it's better to forget it, since you laugh and sound together with the others, they are a damn thing, I said with hatred, and Rayquaza only gave a sigh. Ice, I understand the hatred, for Riaz and everyone else, but take it out on them who did nothing to you, well the Ice of this world suffered for Riaz and Sona, and his family is there too, Rayquaza said. Let's kill the Rayquaza topic, said Ice to close communication with his friend since it was thought as before. When she went down the room she saw her mother who was putting the plates on the table while Celestia was helping her. Ice just sat at the table waiting for his food, but to his surprise, although he didn't show it, Celestia left his plate on the table, and Karen just smiled because of that, since she had faith that her son could get out of that darkness that his dimension sank him. When they finished eating, Ice alone went to change to go to the academy, but unfortunately his mother told him to leave Celestia at the academy, literally, she had to go together. She only used a magic circle to get the report at the academy. We're leaving, Celestia said, ready. Yes, let's just go to the garage, Ice said a little annoyed and she just nodded and they both said goodbye to Karen. Ice and Celestia had arrived at the garage and seeing a lot of sports cars. Maybe you really like cars, said Celestia, a little curious since her dad also really likes cars. A little, but I don't even use it, Ice said to get in the car and Celestia only got in the autopilot. At the occult club. Then he doesn't remember anything, Rhea said seriously since she wanted to have Rayquaza in her evil room and she wasn't the only one if she didn't also sound. President, we'd better heed the warning that Celestia told us, said Akeno, it would be something strange for her. Also remember that Rhea's Rito said seriously and Rhea's only clenched her fists, although she always wondered how she could have Rayquaza if he had the boosted gear. Rhea's Rito is right, he said, sounding serious, making Rhea's go crazy. It's okay, let's leave him alone, I'm not going to do anything anymore, Rhea said seriously. At that point they hear how someone came in a car and looks out the window. Whose car is that? Kiba said, a little curious. Everyone looked at that, including the students and Celestia's entourage, and Ice got into that car. But he wasn't the only one, but Celestia too. That undoubtedly surprised everyone, the two coldest people in the academy, together perhaps it was going to be the end of the world, but each one took a different path. Celestia's entourage went after her since they knew where she was going to the student council room. See, that's why she told us that we won't try to join him to our entourage, she plans to join him, said Riaz, annoyed. Riaz, stop passing power, maybe he wants me to remember you or what she said, sounding already annoyed by Ria's attitude and she just stayed silent, but she was going to do everything possible to make him in her entourage. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.